Richard Caldwell. I am exactly 70 years old today, and I spent the last 4 decades of my life building Caldwell Logistics from a single delivery truck into a nationwide operation. At our son's lavish housewarming party, my wife grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight, her fingers digging into my suit jacket. She leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper above the clinking champagne glasses. "We need to leave right now." I looked at her, confused. "Why? What is going on?" She stayed silent, her eyes darting toward the hallway. She didn't speak another word until we were locked inside our car. Finally she turned to me, her face pale, and asked, "You didn't actually see the final paperwork, did you?" What she told me next left me completely frozen. My wife, Catherine, and I worked tirelessly to give our only son, David, the kind of life we could only dream of when we were young. We paid for his college. We paid for his lavish wedding to Monica, and just last month I wired $1.2 million in cash. It was the down payment for a stunning $2.5 million estate in the upscale suburbs of Illinois. It was supposed to be their forever home, a safe place to raise our future grandchildren. That was the dream, or so I thought. Tonight was the grand housewarming party. The long, winding concrete driveway was completely packed with expensive luxury cars. The caterers were passing around expensive appetizers. But something felt incredibly wrong the moment Catherine and I walked through the front doors. David and Monica were barely hosting. Instead, Monica's mother, Beatrice, was holding court in the grand foyer, parading around the living room, directing the staff and pointing out the custom renovations as if she had paid for every single brick. I told myself she was just an overbearing mother, enjoying her daughter's success. I grabbed a glass of sparkling water and stood near the kitchen watching my son. David looked nervous. He kept adjusting his tie, avoiding my gaze whenever I looked in his direction. Whenever I tried to approach him, Monica would conveniently appear and pull him away to greet another guest. The atmosphere was suffocating. I felt like a stranger in a house my own money had secured. That was when Catherine grabbed my arm. My wife is a strong, composed woman. Seeing her this terrified sent a chill straight down my spine. I followed her out the front door, leaving the noise of the party behind us. We practically jogged down the driveway to my sedan. I unlocked the doors, and we both got in. Catherine locked the doors immediately, breathing heavily, clutching her purse to her chest. "Catherine, talk to me. What is happening? Did Beatrice say something to you?" She shook her head slowly. "Richard, the house. You told me you wired the money to David's escrow account. You told me this house was for our son." "It is for our son. I handled the transfer myself. Everything was in David and Monica's names. What is the problem?" Catherine closed her eyes, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. "I needed to use the restroom. The one on the main floor was occupied, so I went upstairs. I walked past the master suite and saw the door to the private study was wide open. Beatrice was in there, showing off something on the wall to 3 of her friends. They were laughing. They were laughing at us." "Laughing at what, Catherine? What did you see?" "It was the property deed. It was framed, hanging right behind the mahogany desk. I saw the names on that official document." "David and Monica," I stated firmly, though a sickening doubt was already spreading through my chest. "No," Catherine whispered. "David's name is nowhere on that deed. Monica's name is nowhere on that deed. The property is registered solely to a limited liability company, an LLC." "What LLC?" "Kensington Holdings." The air in the car suddenly felt heavy, unbreathable. Kensington. That was Beatrice's maiden name, the name she constantly used to boast about her imaginary aristocratic heritage. "Are you absolutely certain?" "I am certain. I saw the state seal. I saw the registration date. It was filed 3 weeks ago, right after you wired the money, Richard. You did not buy a house for our son. You bought a $2.5 million estate for Beatrice. She owns it all." I sat in the dark, the silence deafening. 40 years of hard work, all to ensure my son would have a secure future, and he had taken my life savings and handed the keys to his manipulative mother-in-law. My own flesh and blood had orchestrated a massive deception right under my nose. I am not a man who gets emotional. I am a man who solves problems. I reached into my jacket pocket and dialed David's cell number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then it connected. but it was not my son's voice. A high-pitched, sickeningly arrogant laugh echoed through the speaker. "Oh, Richard," Beatrice's voice purred with satisfaction. "David is far too busy moving my antique furniture into the huge master bedroom. Thank you so much for the truly lovely little gift." The line went dead. I drove us straight home. Sleep was impossible. I sat in my home office, logged into the county property portal, and confirmed everything within 10 minutes. The deed was registered to Kensington Holdings. The sole managing member was Beatrice. My son and daughter-in-law held zero equity in the home my $1.2 million down payment had secured. I printed every page, placed the papers in a manila folder, and waited for sunrise. At exactly 6:45 in the morning, I walked into David's office at Caldwell Logistics without knocking. He was the chief financial officer, a title I had handed him 3 years earlier. He looked up, startled, masking his surprise with a practiced smile. "Dad, what are you doing here so early?" I did not return the smile. I opened the folder and slammed the printed county property records onto his desk. David flinched. The blood drained from his face as he scanned the highlighted name. Kensington Holdings. Care to explain why my $1.2 million down payment purchased a mansion for your mother-in-law? Dad, listen. It is not what it looks like. You do not have the full picture. I understand perfectly. I understand that I gave you the money to secure a future for your family, and you secretly handed the deed over to Beatrice. She even answered your phone last night to mock me about it. You have exactly 1 minute to tell me the truth before I call the bank and report a massive financial fraud. Before David could invent a lie, Monica walked in carrying a tray of pastries. "Richard, we did not expect you today." Her eyes caught the documents on the desk. Her posture stiffened. "Did you actually go digging through public records just to spy on us?" "I cannot believe you would violate our privacy like this. It was a gift, Richard. A gift means you let it go. Instead, you are sneaking around behind our backs. It is incredibly controlling. Frankly, it is toxic." David found his courage now that he had reinforcements. "Monica is right, Dad. We are adults. You are reacting emotionally instead of logically. You call secretly transferring a $2.5 million asset to Beatrice logical?" David opened a thick black folder with a gold-embossed accounting firm logo. "Sit down, Dad. Let me explain how the tax system works. If you had wired the money directly into our personal accounts, we would have been hit with a staggering gift tax liability. Kensington Holdings is just a shell company, a protective barrier. Beatrice is acting as a temporary trustee to shelter the asset. In exactly 90 days, the property deed will automatically transfer entirely into Monica's and my name. We were trying to protect your investment, not steal it. It was a masterful performance, technically fluent, and legally absurd. You do not use a mother-in-law's personal LLC to bypass federal gift taxes on a primary residence." I knew every word was a lie, but I kept my face blank. Monica stepped forward, her eyes filling with perfectly timed tears. "Richard, how could you think so poorly of us? My mother has spent the last month working herself to exhaustion, meeting with lawyers and accountants, just to protect us. And instead of thanking her, you are treating her like a criminal. Your lack of trust is deeply wounding." David wrapped his arm around her. "Please, Dad. Do not ruin the family harmony over a misunderstanding. Just give it 90 days. Just trust me." I stood there, surrounded by the empire I had built from nothing, looking at two people waiting for me to yield. My gut told me this was only the surface of something far darker. I realized that confronting them directly would yield nothing. If I wanted the truth, I needed them to believe they had fooled me. I needed to become the clueless old man they thought I was. I let my shoulders slump. I pinched the bridge of my nose and let out a shaky sigh. "I am sorry. I am just getting old, David. These modern financial structures are incredibly confusing to me." I panicked. "I apologize for overreacting. You are right. I should have trusted you." The tension evaporated instantly. They exchanged a quick, subtle look of victory. "It is okay, Dad," David said, his voice returning to its confident tone. "We appreciate the apology." I turned to leave. As I pulled open the heavy glass door, the fluorescent hallway light turned the pane into a dark mirror, capturing the reflection of the desk behind me. David thought I was no longer watching. He dove back into his chair, grabbed his mouse, and dragged a digital folder into the trash. I read the title clearly in the reflection: Caldwell Pension Transfers. The drive home was a blur. A tax loophole for a house was one thing. Touching the employee pension fund was something else entirely. I needed to know who was pulling the strings. David was arrogant but cautious. Someone was pushing him. I bought a crystal vase as an apology gift and drove to the estate that afternoon. The front door was slightly ajar. I stepped inside and followed the sound of Beatrice's voice into the living room. David, the chief financial officer of a $40 million company, was on his hands and knees, measuring a Persian rug, while Beatrice stood over him with a teacup, barking orders. Move it exactly 2 inches to the left. Are you completely incapable of following a simple instruction? She snapped her fingers at him twice. I stepped forward. Beatrice's eyes narrowed at the vase in my hands. I came to apologize for my behavior this morning, I said. She smiled smugly. Well, that is very mature of you, Richard. I casually asked David about the fourth quarter warehouse projections. Monica immediately stepped in front of him. David is not working today. Your little trucking company can wait. David simply nodded, staring at the wall. We can talk about logistics next week. I excused myself to the restroom and slipped instead into Beatrice's private study. While cleaning up a trash can I'd accidentally knocked over, I found crumpled final notice letters from 3 offshore casinos, addressed to Beatrice Kensington, demanding immediate wire transfers to settle outstanding debts. Beatrice was not sheltering assets. She was a degenerate gambler drowning in offshore debt, and she was using my son and my company's pension fund to survive. That evening, I told Catherine everything. She wanted to call the police immediately. I told her that would only let David erase the evidence. If we were going to stop this, I needed undeniable proof, pulled directly from the company servers, without David ever knowing. At 2 a.m., I slipped into my home office. David had changed the passwords 3 years ago, locking me out of daily operations. But I had personally built the original network architecture 2 decades earlier, and I still remembered the legacy administrative backdoor. The screen flashed green. I was in. I scanned the vendor payout logs for over an hour before I found it. A recurring monthly payment of exactly $30,000, categorized as strategic logistics consulting, paid to a vendor called Bridge Consulting. The billing address was a rent-controlled apartment complex on the south side of Chicago, the exact address where Beatrice had lived before Monica married my son. Bridge, Beatrice. He was funneling $30,000 a month directly to feed her gambling addiction. I clicked to begin a mass download of the records. Before it could start, the screen flashed red. Admin override detected, alerting CFO immediately. I powered down the laptop instantly. David would know someone had breached his network within minutes, and he would not wait until morning. At 6:15, tires screeched into the driveway. I threw on my robe, ruffled my hair, and shuffled downstairs. David stood on the porch, unraveled, in yesterday's wrinkled clothes, his eyes bloodshot. Dad, we have a massive emergency. The servers were breached last night. The IP pinged back to this house. I let my shoulders slump. Oh, David, I am so sorry. I could not sleep. I came down to check my retirement portfolio, but that new software is impossible to navigate. I tried my old passwords, hoping to bypass the confusing new menus. These warning boxes kept popping up, and I got so frustrated I just unplugged the machine. The relief that washed over him was instant and total. His terror dissolved into familiar, sickening arrogance. Unbelievable, Dad. You cannot just randomly input deprecated codes into a modern network. You triggered a level 5 security cascade. Leave the technical operations to me. If you want your pension files, call my assistant. He patted my shoulder like a man comforting a toddler and left. The moment his car vanished, my posture straightened. I picked up a burner phone and called Thomas Bradley, a forensic auditor who traded exclusively in hard facts. Thomas, I need you to quietly tear my son's life apart. Over the following days, Thomas dug through the digital wreckage. The casinos, he told me, had cut Beatrice off 6 months earlier. She'd turned to an international syndicate of loan sharks, owing over $2 million, with compounding weekly interest. $30,000 a month wasn't nearly enough. David had crossed the ultimate line. He was draining the Caldwell Logistics Employee Pension Fund directly. Over $4 million siphoned so far, routed through Beatrice's shell company to Macau. Worse, David had built himself an exit. He'd used my forged digital signature to draft binding declarations naming me as the guarantor of Beatrice's syndicate debts, and forged executive orders authorizing the phantom subsidiaries. Every stolen dollar led back to my name. If the operation collapsed, I would be the one facing prison, not him. And there was one more document. A drafted petition for emergency medical conservatorship. David and Monica intended to testify that I was suffering from dementia, seize legal control of my life and the company, and lock me away in a secure facility before the annual audit could expose the missing pension funds. They were going to bury me alive. I told Thomas to begin securing the evidence immediately. Then I went to war, quietly. I liquidated my personal stock portfolios into blind trusts, insulated from David's reach. My attorneys worked with federal investigators to freeze the forged guarantor documents before the loan sharks could activate them. And I executed one final maneuver, transferring the mortgage lien on our primary distribution hub, which the company still owed me, out of the corporate entity and into my private trust. If David seized the company, he would inherit a mountain of debt payable directly to me. Then I set the final trap. I drafted a document on company letterhead, titled Immediate Transfer of CEO Powers, a total voluntary surrender of my position to David, left unsigned on my desk, with a fountain pen beside it. I hid a microcamera inside a hollowed encyclopedia on my bookshelf, angled at the desk, and synced the feed to my phone. That night, Catherine and I quietly packed a bag and left through the side door, retreating to a hotel Thomas had arranged. We watched the live feed for over an hour. Then, at 1:15 a.m., the office door creaked open. David and Monica slipped inside. David found the document immediately. He read it, his face transforming into something unrecognizable. "Look at this," he whispered. "He actually drafted it. The old fool is handing over the keys on a silver platter." Monica snatched the page, laughing cruelly. "He is nothing but a senile cash cow waiting to be milked." "We do not even need to forge it," David said, rolling the pen between his fingers. "I will bring it up Friday at dinner. Play the concerned son, he will sign it willingly, and once he does, we secure the pension funds, satisfy the syndicate, and finalize the conservatorship Monday morning. We lock him away by the end of the month. He will never speak to a lawyer again." Catherine wept silently beside me. "Let them have their Friday dinner," I whispered. "It will be their last." Friday evening, the estate was packed with Beatrice's wealthy friends, gathered to witness her lifestyle, funded entirely by stolen pension money. I leaned on a cane, playing the fragile old man to perfection. David guided me to a velvet armchair, placing the black leather folder on the side table beside me. "Some important family business after dinner, Dad. Something that will make your life much easier." Through the evening, Beatrice ordered Catherine to serve appetizers to the guests, like hired help. Catherine complied silently, with quiet dignity. At dinner, Beatrice escalated further. "You really do make an exceptional low-class maid, Catherine. Perhaps I will hire you permanently once Richard is finally locked away." I put down my fork. I stopped trembling. I lifted my chin and looked directly at her. The room went silent. "My wife," I said, my voice carrying with unmistakable authority, "is the foundation of everything you see around you. She built a life of actual substance, while you spent your existence accumulating debt and empty vanity. Do not ever speak to her that way again." Beatrice's chair crashed backward as she stood, shrieking, hurling her wineglass to the floor. "How dare you! I will not tolerate this indignity in front of my closest friends." She turned on David. "Handle your father, or I will have security throw him out." David marched around the table, his composure gone. "What is wrong with you? You are embarrassing Monica's mother in front of the city's elite. Apologize to her right now, or I am putting you in a medical home tomorrow." He grabbed the folder, tore it open, slammed the document in front of me, and pressed the fountain pen into my hand. "Sign this and apologize, now." I picked up the pen, I gripped both ends and snapped it in half. Ink burst across the ruined document. "You are fired," I said. David froze. I nodded toward the doorway. Thomas Bradley walked in, flanked by 2 federal agents. The gasps from the guests were instant. "My son has spent months convincing everyone that my mind is failing," I said, my voice carrying across the room. "The truth is far more sinister. I know about the shell company in Delaware. I know about the fraudulent consulting fees routed to the Cayman Islands. I know about the wire transfers to offshore casinos and a debt consolidation firm in Macau. Beatrice owes an international syndicate over $2 million, and to keep them away, my son crossed the ultimate line. He drained over $4 million directly from the Caldwell Logistics Employee Pension Fund. He stole the retirement savings of hard-working men and women to finance his mother-in-law's gambling addiction. And when he realized the audit was 3 weeks away, he and Monica drafted an emergency conservatorship to lock me away and silence me permanently." David collapsed to his knees, weeping. Beatrice bolted for the door and slammed straight into the federal agents blocking her path. I pulled a second document from my jacket. "When Catherine and I provided the down payment for this house, you assumed it was a gift. It was not. It was a secured corporate loan, tied to David's continued employment. Since you have embezzled millions from the pension fund, your employment is terminated, effective immediately. That means the loan is in default. This is a formal notice of immediate eviction. You have 24 hours to vacate." Monica screamed, spun on David, and slapped him across the face. "You promised me we were safe. I am filing for divorce the second I leave this house." She stormed out without looking back. The lead agent produced handcuffs. "Beatrice Kensington, you are under arrest for federal wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to defraud a federal pension fund. You have the right to remain silent." She screamed and thrashed as they dragged her out. David crawled toward me on his hands and knees. "Dad, please. I am your son. I will confess to everything. Just forgive me." I felt nothing. I pulled my trousers free of his grasp and walked away with Catherine, leaving the wreckage behind us. By Monday, the story had exploded across every local outlet. David's reputation was obliterated overnight. Beatrice was denied bail and remanded to federal custody. Monica filed for divorce within days, publicly disavowing any knowledge of the crimes, abandoning David completely. I called an emergency meeting at the warehouse. I told every employee the truth, that millions had been stolen from their pensions. Then I told them I had personally liquidated my private assets to refund every dollar, in full, immediately, and pledged to match their upcoming contributions myself. The room broke into tears of relief. I had walked in broken by my son's betrayal. I walked out surrounded by the loyalty of people who understood what hard work actually meant. Catherine and I sold the old estate and moved into a modest single-story home with a wraparound porch. We found a peace we hadn't felt in years. Then, one stormy midnight in late November, the doorbell rang. David stood on the porch, soaked to the bone, his ruined suit plastered to his shivering frame, aged a decade in a month. He had nothing. No bag, no phone. He fell to his knees on the wet concrete. "Dad, please, you have to help me. I have nowhere else to go." He wept, insisting it wasn't his fault, that Monica and Beatrice had manipulated him, pushed him into it, poisoned his mind against me. "I am not asking to come inside. Just let me sleep in the garage. Please, Dad. I am begging you." I looked down at him for a long moment. "I gave you an empire," I said quietly. "I handed you a legacy of honor, and in return, you tried to put me in a cage. You are not my son anymore. You are simply a consequence of your own greed, and consequences must be faced alone." I stepped back into the warmth of my home and closed the door. I turned the deadbolt and listened to his muffled cries fade behind the storm. I walked into the living room, where Catherine sat by the fire. I sat beside her and took her hand. We listened to the storm raging harmlessly outside our walls. Finally safe, our legacy protected from the people who had only ever seen our worth in dollar signs. Blood makes you related. Loyalty and respect make you family. Never let love blind you to disrespect, and never let anyone, Even your own flesh and blood treat you as collateral damage in their selfish games. Have you ever had to cut ties with a toxic family member to protect your own peace? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe for more real stories of survival, betrayal, and justice.